At this moment in time, I am going to say John Wick Chapter 4 is my favourite film of 2023.
Afraid to go back to the cinema? Afraid of pronouns in your favourite movie franchise? Afraid of overbearing diversity messages?
Well, have no fear, because John Wick is here.
People keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
Yes, hallelujah, it's the video show. And now, the man the BBC calls...
Is this moron number one?
Jason King on Kung Fu Hot Dog.
So, ladies and gentlemen, today at 11:40, I sat down in my local Cineworld in the super screen with a row all to myself. I was so honoured by that fact. I couldn't film in the cinema because some people beat me to it, despite the fact I arrived in early just in time, but sat my ass down and I saw a very cringy commercial, which I will talk about in a separate video short. Now, you guys and girls know I'm a massive James Bond fan. I have been for many years, but that series to me has seen a massive decline since Daniel Craig took on the eponymous role as 007. And the reason why I do mention that, because in recent years, the way Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt in the Mission Impossible franchise has reinvented that whole film franchise is pretty amazing. Keanu Reeves plays John Wick in 2014, a man who is out for vengeance because his dying wife left him a dog as a present. Some douchebag Russians, whoever, came in and killed the dog because they wanted to steal his 1969 Mustang, and then he had revenge, and I fully support that. An eye for an eye is not saying a prayer for somebody who did you wrong, because prayers is for nutcases or Jehovah's Witnesses. You don't hear Keanu and you don't hear Mr. Cruise talking about the fact that they want to slash their wrists because they hate being in this franchise. Daniel Craig has absolutely destroyed James Bond. He may have done irreparable damage at this point. So when I hear about a new James Bond in the offing, it might be Aaron Taylor Johnson. Well, maybe. I don't think I can have a spark of hope again, a glimmer of optimism like I used to with the Bond film. But every time a John Wick film is released, and you know what? The timeline between released dates hasn't been that bad so far. I know there were some delays with this particular film, but you know what? When you're in the hands of 8711 Productions, helmed by Chad Stahelski and his partner in crime, David Leitch, and obviously Keanu Reeves has a tight bond with those guys, you can just sit back, you can be like Winston at the Continental Hotel, as played by the very overtanned but very talented Ian McShane, have your finest glass of whatever alcoholic beverage was going to be served for that day, and you'll be, rest assured, you'll be in really good hands. And speaking of hands, we are talking lethal weapons in this movie. And can I just say, Hiroyuki Sanada and Donnie Yen in the same scenes together is an action man's wet dream. It absolutely is. Now, I don't know if these two guys have actually appeared in other films together, but when I saw these two in a mainstream Hollywood movie, good God, man, what are you doing? Now, before we get into the rest of my review, let's have a quick look at the budget for John Wick. So, number one, it cost $20 million. Number two, $40 million. Three was $75 million. And boy, oh boy, did they go the whole hog for this one. From what I'm estimating at the moment, from what I've been told, $100 million has been spent on this film because they went around to various locations, setting up new stunts. The storyline is very basic, but what actually overshadows the proceedings is just the sheer veracity of the action, reinventing the wheel as such, which to me is just, I have to take my hats off to 8711 Productions, because man, they went balls out, man. For me, my favorite fight sequence or the actual where it takes place is Osaka, Japan. I love Japan. I've been there before. I'm dying to go there again very Not soon, but maybe in the near future. I'm waiting for that to be arranged. But holy hell, man, that is just a thing of beauty. Now, the thing about this film to me, it's all about stature and grace. And what I mean about that, when I was training as an actor in the late 80s at Southwark College in Waterloo, the one thing my drama teacher always told me was to imagine a string being pulled up from behind your neck so you'd maintain a very good posture. And what I noticed about John Wick is that posture seems to be a very precise trait that you need to have. It's, yeah, anybody can swagger, that's great, and there's tons of swagger in this film. There absolutely is. But there's a poise, there's a grace to the characters. I would advise you, if you go to a super screen or the IMAX cinema to watch John Wick Chapter 4, you might want to have some earmuffs at the very beginning, because it's not the sound of gunshots that you have to worry about. It's the pounding close-up punches of John Wick's bloody fist going straight into a punching bag again and again. It's amazing how they did that. It absolutely is. And I gotta say, some real standout characters for me. Obviously, you got Larry Fishburne reprising his role as the hobo. He's always funny and a delight to watch. Then, of course, you've got Bill Skarsgård as the main douchebag baddie of the piece. Very interesting. I kind of like that. Then he had, I think it's Shamir Anderson or Shamir Robinson as Mr. Nobody. And everybody's kind of overpraising his character. And I would say he's good. He definitely doesn't have a unique fighting style, but he doesn't do any martial arts. He's more of the burly brawler, which I guess is pretty cool. But he's accompanied by his faithful German Shepherd dog. And again, this film does take cues from a lot of video games, because when I saw the pairing of German Shepherd and his lovable owner, I thought of Dead to Rights. And if you play that game, you play a guy called Jack. He's a cop. He's having a bad day. And whenever he's up against the bad guys, he instructs his dog to go and tear out the most intimate parts of the men. And it's hilarious. And they repeat that in this film here, which I thought was fantastic.
Gonna need your help here, Shep.
There is quite, there's, oh my God, there is an incredible sequence which, you know, they could have gone either way about doing this, but what they did was to do an overhead camera shot, which kind of goes on for about maybe a minute, 2 minutes. And some people have said, oh, this is very much like Hotline Miami, which I kind of agree with. But to me, the most recent game that reminds me of is Hong Kong Massacre, which if you haven't played it, it is a lot of fun. And my God, like what they managed to pull off in this film. I swear Chad Stahelski and everybody sits down, watches the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible films, and they think to themselves, I think we can outdo that action scene. Now look, I am absolutely cannot wait to see Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 when it opens in July of this year. But I do wonder if the stunts in that film, or the set pieces, whatever you want to call them, are going to outperform John Wick 4. At this moment in time, I am going to say John Wick Chapter 4 is my favorite film of 2023. It's going to take some beating from any other opposing movie in the same genre that can outdo it. I just don't know if there's anything that can absolutely outperform it. And I gotta say, at 2 hours and 45 minutes long, and there was only 20 minutes of ad breaks and your various cinematic trailers in the lead up to my performance, so that was actually pretty good. Time doesn't drag. They set up the story, you know what's happened from the previous films. There's also a very nice little nod to the 1979 film The Warriors Come Out to Play, where they have a female DJ. It's like a close-up of her mouth and a microphone saying very sexy things, but it's a very clever way of communicating to everybody who's got the frequency of about what's going to go down, and I love that. It's a nice little nod. If you've seen The Warriors, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So like Joy Sims, all in all, this was a fantastic movie. honestly a great experience. So good, I'm going to see it again next week. I'm going to get my same reservation one more time, and I'll probably go and watch it a couple of more times after that. It's rare that I do that, but John Wick 4 is a certain kind of special. Now, the ending, which I'm not going to spoil for you, I'm going to disregard what happened at the end. I think that's... yeah, just disregard it completely. But oh, by the way, we've got to talk about Scott Adkins, because his name is in the credits. Thankfully, I didn't actually clock on to the character he was playing in there. So I'm sat there in the cinema thinking, where is my man Scott? When is he going to turn up and do some damage? And lo and behold, I kind of realized 3/4 of the way in the film, I was watching him, but I didn't have to do a double take. It was like a quadruple take. I'm like, that's Scott Adkins? Are you effing kidding me? Really? And I'm not going to tell you anymore because there's an obvious reference I can compare this to, and if I do that, you will know who Scott Adkins is. But do me a favor, when you go and watch John Wick 4, let me know if you were fooled, because I'll tell you what, man, that is probably the best performance I've seen of Mr. Adkins in a long time. You know, the guy's a brute force in the cinema, but he can also act, and in this particular moment, he really gets to shine against Keanu Reeves. It's pretty amazing. But oh, Donnie Yen. Oh my god, he's so good in this film as the blind assassin. He's an old friend of John's, so you know they go way back. But honestly, the guy gets so much screen time. It's an absolute pleasure. Now, if you're one of the handful of people who are deeply offended by the emasculation of Matt Murdock in the She-Hulk series on Disney+, poor Charlie Cox, what have you got yourself into, mate? You can't get the Illuminati to rescue you out of that one, sunshine. I would say you can get some compensation in Donnie Yen, because to me, he was Matt Murdock all the way in this film. And if you were to recast that character in an R-rated Daredevil on another TV network, I wouldn't be complaining about that one little bit. And plus, Donnie Yen is a very good actor as well. Let that not be forgotten, folks. And you know, the last thing I'm going to say, I love Keanu Reeves. The man is a fine wine. He ages beautifully. The fact that the guy is in his 50s, I think he's near enough the same age as Tom Cruise, and they're still doing 90% of their own stunts in their own films, pleasing the audiences, pleasing the masses, ignoring what naysayers might say about those films. And you know what's really funny as well? You know, this film is going to rocket to the #1 at the box office in America. It did well in its opening night on Thursday, 8.9 million, which is incredible. This film's going to do gangbusters at the box office. It's already going to knock Shazam 2 off the top. No one's talking about Creed 3 anymore. Do you know why? Because Sylvester Stallone wasn't in the movie. And of course, Ant-Man in the Quantumania of God knows gobbledygook, what, who cares? It's going to put all of those films to shame. Because at the end of the day, folks, we all want to be entertained, don't we? Why don't we just not feel guilty about watching a film that delivers in punches, left, right, center, in your nutsack, in your butthole, wherever? So guys, if you enjoyed this review today for John Wick Chapter 4, will there be a Chapter 5? Well, I'm holding reservations about that one. And Lance Reddick, it was very sad to see him in his last performance, as far as I know, in this franchise for sure. But in a strange roundabout way, they did actually send him off in a really good manner, which I liked. So unwittingly, and how are they to know that Charon was going to be honoured in a very dignified way? And Ian McShane, the guy never gets old with performances. He still turns it in. I still think his performance in Hot Rod is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But honestly, folks, I don't do many ratings for the film reviews I put out here, but for John Wick Chapter 4, I'm making an exception, man. 10 out of 10. This might be my favourite in the whole franchise, even though #1 still has that... oh, that nice finesse, that nice chef's kiss that I couldn't believe happened. Hollywoke will still be Hollywoke. The John Wick films will not be that way at all. And you know what? There is a female assassin in this film, and you can tell that, forget her wafy-like figure, she can do martial arts, and she does it very well. She struggles in places with the dilemma she's put into. and I thought, you know what, this woman is fighting for her life. I can actually buy into her character. She's already a badass. When we first see her, she's like very unassuming, but as soon as she goes into action girl mode, she's not cringy. It's not the 355 where wafy Jessica Chastain just hits men bigger than her and down the floor they tumble.
A few moments later.
Oh, look at this. Empire magazine, the bastion of film reviews. Well, it used to be a very long time ago. Of course, now in recent years, they've gone completely wokety woke. Take, for example, Rye Lane, the film that nobody cared about. I think it's referring to Peckham Rye, and they gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Lately, the rom-com has felt like a genre in decline. No longer the case in its box office, whatever, nobody cares. John Wick, now I know you can't see the star review because I've got it in dark mode, but it only had 3 out of 5 stars. And the opening line for their review is, John Wick Chapter 4 is relentlessly violent. It just does not stop. Oh, make it stop. It's like a Terminator. It will not stop. And in answer to that, I disagree with that reviewer completely, because it seems they might have been taking too many slush puppies that morning before their review, or maybe they're instructed by an AI to write unfavorable things. The way I see it, is if someone doesn't like a film and you go and watch it, hey, you're going to get a better time out of it. And John Wick comes with a certain love, a certain affection. Yes, I'm quoting Joan Armour Trading there, in terms of who its fan base is, not to diminish their returns, and to give them a really, really good time. And by the way, folks, if you enjoyed my chopped suey chop-tastic review today for John Wick Chapter 4, make sure you leave a like below, make sure you comment, and if your name happens to be Jonathan, dear boy, have a drink on me until we meet again in the Continental.
Like and subscribe, or get your nuts Krogan crushed with Jason King.
And yes, in case you were wondering, I was actually in my underwear while I was making this video.